And so that's why I like her, because she's not just like, okay, here's some like antidepressants.
No, I love that. I had a psychiatrist like that once, and it was really like cut and dry. She's like, I don't think you even have ADHD. I think you're faking it. I'm like, what?
Same
She's
with
like, I think you're
me.
just depressed. And it was
Hmm.
like very disheartening. I was like, well, I've been told since I was 9 or 10 that I was ADHD. And so it's very interesting that now I'm being told I'm a liar. And really, it's just because she was being pressed upon as a provider to not just like give people
To actually work.
ADHD medications, because especially in an affluent area where people have money and they're like, well, I want this and I'm going to have this. I'm getting this. And so they come in there and they strong arm the doctors and they're like, I'm not leaving until I get this.
Hmm.
So it is something that I understand they have to deal with,
Hmm.
but it also hurts the ones that need it,
Yep.
you know.
Yep.
And this leads us right into our topic.
Is it on?
Mental Health Awareness Month is May, and we're recording this still in May. Uh, and welcome back to the Unmasked and Unchained podcast. We were just talking about, for mental health, especially growing up, needing mental health resources, um, like what we go through in the day to day. Right now, like I said, I had a psychiatrist that made it very difficult for me to just like believe in myself, and they made me question if I was misdiagnosed. And then I was like, well, what's wrong with me then? Maybe nothing's wrong with me. But I was like,
Right.
there's definitely something still wrong with me.
Right. It's almost like you're getting gaslit, because you know, like, you live in your body and your brain. You know something's not right,
Yes, and
but no one's believing me. So what do you do?
and this was a time that I had gone off of my Adderall for such a long time. My Vyvanse was the last thing I took. But from like 25, 26, I took myself off till I was like 30, 31 again. And so it was like coming back, she made me really question myself. Then she put me on like Lexapro, like
Hmm.
antidepressant,
Yeah,
and
I
it was
used to be
just
on that. Yeah.
everything wrong. It just numbed me and it made me
Because then
like,
she was treating in her head what the easiest route was for you,
yeah,
but she wasn't actually treating what was needed to be
exactly. They
treated.
just were trying to put a band-aid over it
Hmm.
instead of like helping me.
Hmm.
Where I know where I was my best version of myself when I was on my Vyvanse back in the day in school, like I was like Mr. Overachiever.
Yeah.
you know. But it leads us into talking about mental health awareness and like having the help that we need to be the best versions of ourselves. And I think a lot of history, the 90s is when ADHD was first talked about, even autism, really,
Hmm.
and in the mainstream. And it's just that a lot of us got swept through a general filter.
Hmm.
Um, I think that I was ADHD and I do need these to be good because like everything that explains having good days and bad days, but not being able to explain why I'm having bad days because there's literally no reason to be having bad days, but they're low energy. I have no energy, can't get anything accomplished. It's not just a simple physical task.
Hmm.
So it's like to say that I'm no longer like that, or that's just depression, or
Right. It's just
like
anxiety. It's just that's real. Anxiety and depression are real,
of course.
but for some, I feel like that's the first just diagnosis for everyone, no matter what you have. Oh, it's anxiety and depression. Put them on an antidepressant.
Exactly. Or like even like the bipolar diagnosis. I
Hmm.
mean, like they didn't want to go ADHD, so a lot of people got pushed bipolar, and then they just get treated with, these drugs that just dull them.
Hmm.
It numbs them, and it's just like, yeah. So they're no longer manic or hyperactive, but
Yeah.
you haven't solved anything. You just
Or
shut
it
it
just doesn't
down.
work, period. I know for me, it took me 30 years, over 30 years, to get properly diagnosed. And I'm actually still in the process for some other diagnoses, but
Hmm.
I have gone through so many different diagnoses. And when I was younger, the first time I went to therapy was when I was 15, and they basically just treated like I was a troubled kid and that it was just my fault. And so they were just trying to teach me how to be a better, more respectful kid. And so I really just got brushed to the side there. And then things just were getting worse and worse. And I don't even know if I can say the S word on here. So we won't, but you know what I mean. And it literally took for me to do that in order to finally get some kind of help. And even then, I still wasn't taken serious because I do have, and they don't know probably, but I do have a history with substance abuse. And so I've gone
I
to
think
rehab in the
most
past.
neurodivergents can admit that we have some
Yes,
kind of uh,
self-medicating.
self-medicating relationship with substances,
Hmm.
because we think we know, we usually know what it's like to be in our body and what
Hmm.
helps. But, a lot of that can be detrimental, or, in the right way can be helpful with pills, but even
Hmm.
that can be detrimental. It's really just
It can
so,
spiral real quick.
it's a lot, it's a lot to put up with and or a lot to understand,
Yes.
but it is something that is crucial to understand to help us function in our best way.
Yes, because I was always, after I went to rehab, which I chose to do, I wanted to get help. I was then almost villainized in every hospital, doctor's office setting since, still to this day, until I found my current psychiatrist, which I love her. And she's the one that finally got the missing puzzle pieces because she actually listened to me, did not judge, did not look at me as, oh, she's just a drug seeker, which she even told me, like, literally at our last appointment, she looked at me and she's like, I am so sorry. I just think every single provider you've had before has just never given you a fair chance because they just look at your chart, they see your history,
Well, that's
they don't want to treat
Well,
you
that's
for
what leads
ADHD or
into
anything
that.
like that.
Sorry to interrupt,
Oh,
but
no, no, no.
that's what leads into that self-medicating. It's like,
Exactly.
well, I know what I need. You don't know what I need. So
Or you
this is
won't give me what I
yeah,
need.
and it's like then you lean into things that are like, okay, this makes me feel the most normal, and that may be alcohol or marijuana or
Yeah.
like any other substances. A lot of people go even further because, especially bipolar, like, a lot of people just get lost and they just look to dissociate and
Hmm.
numb because they don't know how to understand and work with themselves. So
Yes.
it's like they just run away from themselves, they run
Yeah.
away from the reality. And that's where it gets really hard, and that's where we need to be seen and understood. And the medical professionals need to take time with everybody
Hmm.
because you need to see us for who we are, not who you assume we are,
Yep.
because those misdiagnoses can be so detrimental, especially to children growing up and having different perceptions of what they are and why they
Hmm.
don't fit in, or, oh, I have a disability, or,
Hmm.
it's a lot of different variables that go into play
Yeah.
when we do this. But luckily, this day and age, there is more exposure through such things as
Hmm.
this, and
Yes.
therapists going on social media and
Yes, that's so
calling
helpful.
for that exposure, and that forcing, like, even just today's, like in this year or last year, it's like they're starting to update protocols for therapists and doctors just now to
Hmm.
really make space for these types of kids so they're not misdiagnosed, so they're not just like, you know, um, given a pill, sent on their way, and they're like, well, this
Or just
doesn't work.
ignored. Yeah, just
Yeah,
completely ignored. And I mean, let's be honest, the majority of people that end up in our, and this is like this is for a whole nother podcast, but it all ties in. The majority of people in our prison system suffer greatly from mental illness and probably wouldn't be there if they got the right treatment in childhood or whatever.
if they were just seen
Yes.
as they needed to be seen. That's
Hmm.
the thing. It's like not even treatment, it's understanding, it's being seen,
Hmm.
it's being understood. Like,
And
it's
just being aware that there is sometimes we gaslight ourselves into thinking, well, or at least I do this. I'm like, well, maybe I'm just like making all this up. Maybe there's nothing wrong with me. Maybe I'm just like crazy. And then like my psychiatrist is like, no, there isn't. Like, and so just like having someone reassure that you're not crazy, there is something that's different, but we can fix it. Like there are things in place now.
yeah, it's definitely
You're not
getting that.
just like a lost cause.
No, yeah, we need that like confirmation that we're
Hmm.
not crazy, that it's like, all right. And especially like I was saying earlier, like how this day and age of social media has allowed the interconnectedness to share our stories and to find other like people and to say, all right, we're not crazy. This person has almost the exact experience of
Yeah.
through life that I have.
Mhm.
And they're wired the same way and they react the same way and they project the same way.
Mhm.
And it's like, okay, this isn't for nothing. And we're allowed to see these similarities and be like, okay, now we can validate that we're not crazy,
Mhm.
that we're just wired differently.
Yeah.
And there's a whole community of us out there that are ready to support and get to know each other, you
Mhm.
know. I feel
Yeah.
like that's what we're all looking for in this day and age is a community who sees us. And that's what we're doing. We're building that community.
And honestly, trying to get people that even aren't a part of the community to also see and understand. I think that's so big because no matter what, we live in a world where it is the most diverse thing you could live in. You cannot escape diversity. And so you will be around people with mental health issues, you will be around people with autism. This, even if you are a neurotypical, perfect childhood, everything's great, you're still living among us.
Yes.
So please, please understand us and help us.
Yeah.
Help
And that
us.
leads me into like a challenge of what is mental health. And it's not just like positive vibes, you know? It's not
Mhm.
just like, all right, well, you
Go
can't,
take a walk.
yeah, go take a walk, calm down, and come back. And I was like, it does involve that, but it's
Mhm.
also there's reasons why that are not the conventional norms
Mhm.
that do set us apart that we need to understand because otherwise we can be very reactive and we don't even understand why,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
and we have to work through those things to regulate our nervous system daily so that we can thrive in this world, you know, that
Yes.
most people can endure and we can't just endure.
Right. Yes.
So the one thing I want to say is like a lot of people, especially in the let's say straight male community, you know, it's like
Okay.
they don't want to talk about their emotions.
Right.
So it's like almost at a detriment to admit that you have emotions, that you
Mhm.
have
It's a
feelings, that you
weakness.
have something that doesn't make you like an Iron Man.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? That is deflective to everything. But
Mhm.
that goes and show that all these deflective people, you know, they're not getting any help and they're just taking down everyone around them. And it's
Please
so
get
fun.
help.
Yeah, it's like it's so funny why
Please.
all my girlfriends are like, why can't I just find a guy that I can understand and they get me and they want to better themselves? And I was like, because that's not the environment that has shaped that type of person.
Mhm.
You know, they haven't gone through the trials and tribulations like the people outcasts or like people that are outside the social norm that has to go to shape that kind of understanding and just visibility or like that
Yeah.
sight,
Yes.
you know,
Yep.
growing up gay, growing up neurodivergent, you know,
Mhm.
growing up outside the social norm
Yeah.
really sets us apart and allows us to step outside and look in and
Mhm.
say, oh, something's not right here. I
Mhm.
see why. And we've grown up with those eyes, you know, and creating the understanding and creates who we are today,
Mhm.
you know, and that's really what this is about is sharing that understanding and saying like, you're right, we're not crazy. What
Mhm.
you're observing and the connections you're making are real.
Yes.
You know, other people
Yes.
just don't perceive them,
Mhm.
you know, and a lot of people like to gaslight you into thinking that you're just crazy and it doesn't exist when in reality they don't understand it or it pulls on those strings of emotions and they're like, oh, they're like, no,
That exactly that, literally word for word.
exactly. And you know, in the past, like I feel like traditional mental health has just failed us because of that oversimplification of symptoms and what presents as what, and the mass craze of ADHD or ADD and the want and need and request of people for Adderall to be higher functioning and like
Mhm.
to achieve everything, you know.
Yeah.
This day and age really pushes for us to be the best versions of ourselves in a way of high achieving. You know,
Yes.
they want us to be able to do this,
That's
that, the other,
that's
and
how you get your value in this
exactly.
society.
And why wouldn't people be drawn to stimulants to be able to function? And then they think, oh, I need this because I'm exhausted. I need this because I can't pay attention. I was like, no, first of all, you're overloading yourself because you're trying to pay attention to 50 different things and keep up with the Joneses. And you have a family, and you have to have a social life, and you have to have vacation. And it's like, no wonder you need a stimulant to get through it all. Like society is just
To survive.
required so much from you. So I
Yes.
see like why that's led people to like providers to even like misdiagnose us because they don't take us seriously because they have such an influx of people feeling similar symptoms.
Mhm.
But our symptoms are not that simplified. Our symptoms go deeper than that because it's
No.
not like when there's a day that I have nothing going on.
Mhm.
That's the day where I can just be in a freeze and it's like I have so much to do,
Mhm.
but you know what? I don't necessarily have to do it today.
Mhm.
And I don't think I can handle today. And even when you take your medicine, it's
Yes.
like you
Oh,
still
all
have
the
that. If
time.
you don't take your medicine, it's like you can just,
That's like guaranteed.
you know,
Yeah, I agree. Which kind of leads us into our topic for our next episode. We won't get into it here, but about hustle culture and
yes,
how detrimental that is for your mental health. But we'll save that for the next episode.
exactly. But traveling right along, we were talking about what helped us, using our resources from social media to connect with others that are like us, building that online community to say, to validate our
Mhm.
feelings.
TikTok's been huge for me. I know that sounds crazy, but TikTok has been the most informative, free, just most educational platform that I've been on where you can get information directly from a therapist for free or directly from a doctor. And they just post all this super educational content, but in a way that is easy to understand. And your algorithm knows, it just knows what you have. And so, you get it on your For You page. And I have learned more from TikTok and Instagram about myself than even my best doctors have ever been able to tell me. And I don't blame them. I mean, you only get a certain amount of time with your provider, and they only know so much about you. They only know so much about your experience,
Mhm.
especially if they don't experience the same things. And so TikTok has just been, it's like so helpful. I don't know
No,
how
it
you
really
feel.
has. I mean, I will say a lot of my therapy has gone with a therapist, but also like I've coached myself. And
Yes,
that's why I
that's
think I've
huge.
become a coach is because I've learned the things I need to implement outside of therapy to help me continue on in my growth journey, my
Mhm.
healing journey. And it's those aspects that other people need to learn to incorporate. It's like it's very hard to do it by just yourself.
Mhm.
And a therapist, you have to know what you're going to and talking about a lot of times. Like
Yeah.
luckily I followed these therapists and PhD psychologists and like psychiatrists and saw their takes on things. So it made me think, okay, this is how I need to start thinking. It made me
Mhm.
probe and have questions to bring to therapy to help better myself. Instead of just like, okay, here's
That's
what's wrong with
exactly
today.
what I do.
Here's what happened
Yes.
this week. This is what happened to Barbara. Like, wow.
Because you're not going to get too, for some people, like, that may help talk therapy, but for me, talking about like my immediate issues does nothing. Like my issues are much deeper than that, and so like yeah,
But see,
just
I
talking
think
about it doesn't.
naturally I dig deep. So when I was able to
Yes,
talk it out, I started hearing myself and I would answer my
yes.
own questions. But I really don't think a lot of people go into therapy with that kind of curiosity,
No,
problem solving mindset
they
that,
just
like,
want the
no,
therapist
I
to
have a
solve them.
problem here and I know it's me and my surroundings. They go in like, okay, I need to be validated for how I feel. Are you
Yes.
going to validate me? Like, and you know what? Knowing people that have gone to therapy for years and they haven't healed or fixed
Oh,
themselves, I
some of
wonder
your
what they're
biggest
talking about.
abusers are in
I'm
therapy.
like,
Yeah.
you've learned all the lingo, but you actually know what it applies to? Are you such the narcissist that you don't even see how this is you?
No, no,
And
but
you've
the
just
scary
been
thing
going to
is,
gab to your friend all you pay for somebody to talk to?
they do know though. They're smart. They know, and a lot of times they get it, the information, and they actually use it to be able to manipulate more. So
They do.
so therapy can be one of those things. I think everyone needs therapy, but you gotta find the right therapist that will essentially call you out, like I hate to say, but will call you on
You
your
really do.
BS.
Because I've had,
If you're not like super deep and self-aware, I can almost be my own therapist because I like literally
same.
conversate with
Because I
myself.
question everything, even
Yes.
my own thoughts. Like people think
Hmm.
I don't believe people, but I was like, I don't believe my own self. Like I question all
Right.
my thoughts. Like I put it on display, be like, okay, is this valid? Should I
Hmm.
be validating
Yeah.
this? Like, where did this come from? This thought, this
Hmm.
feeling? Because then that's how you really get to understand yourself. Is like, I have this feeling. let's reverse engineer where this came from,
Right.
and you just start going back and back and back, and
Yes.
you
Until you
define
find
it
it.
to yourself,
Hmm.
and then you're like, okay, that doesn't, like, this understanding doesn't work anymore, and you got to
Mm-mm.
challenge your perceptions,
Yeah.
and it really helps you move forward into that growth,
Yeah.
but that leads me into, like, how we are very anxious people. We get overstimulated very easily. That goes hand in hand with our ADHD, autism, outside stimuli. And a lot of problems, we take rejection sensitivity, that dysphoria, where we just the smallest little rejection, where we had it lined up in our head, we're like, okay, this should be the intended outcome. And when it's not, it's just soul crushing,
Oh, soul crushing is the
you
word.
know and even into, like, anxiety, when you're like, a fear of public spaces, or social anxiety
Hmm.
when you're going out and you don't think people will accept you,
Hmm.
and it's like,
I have that. Yeah.
yeah, I know, we all do. And it's honestly, it takes, like, it's called cognitive behavioral therapy, and it's a
Hmm.
couple little tips and tricks. The one I love the most is, like, the reframing
Hmm.
one,
Yeah.
and you pretty much just, um, challenge your thoughts, challenge that anxious idea, challenge that idea of rejection, being like, all right, so this didn't go as planned. So does this mean that they don't like me? Because usually that's our first thought, is, what did I do wrong?
Right.
But that's our first problem, is putting us at the center of the problem or the
Hmm.
equation. It's like,
And
well,
just
there's two
assuming
parts to this
that that's the reason.
equation. We're projecting that we think that their answer has to do with us, but it doesn't. It has to do with them.
Mhm.
And when we stop, we take ourselves out of the equation and we're allowed to look at it, we can be like, okay,
Yeah.
so it makes sense from a standing back standpoint. Like, now I
Mhm.
can see it. And now this makes more sense than I'm the enemy, or like they hate me and I'm the reason that they did all this. No, they did this because this is how they feel,
Mhm.
but they still want to be around you, or no, depending on the situation. But it really just takes challenging that thought. And even an anxious thought of, like, social anxiety is like, do people like me? Are they going to accept me? It's like, challenge it and be like, what is my track record? Have I been ultimately rejected in the past? When I have, what was the scenario and what you did? Was that person, was I putting myself somewhere where I shouldn't, like,
Mhm.
being over casual, maybe,
Mhm.
sometimes that's a problem, where we misread signs and we're over casual, and it's like, oh, I overdid boundaries and they're just pushing back, and I misread that. You know what I mean? But that's
Mhm.
a different thing to go into. But it's more the idea, like, is this a fact or is this a feeling?
Yes.
you know and really, is when you can answer that question, you're able to get to the root of it, is like, oh, this is not a fact, there is no logic behind this is a feeling, and it's just a feeling based on thoughts that I've had, of fears that have led to this scenario. And
Yes.
it's like,
Insecurities,
right, if
fears.
it's fear based and it's a feeling, don't even give it the validation. It's only there, it's that voice in your head that's trying to keep you down, and we're retraining ourselves.
Mhm.
Cognitive behavioral therapy is retraining those thoughts and be like, hey, we're not giving this power today. I don't think this will ever happen, or has ever happened. So why am I thinking it is certain to happen?
Mhm.
And that leads to the anxiety and the rejection. It all stems to just getting in our own way and stopping ourselves and being
Yeah.
like, hey, this
Blocking
doesn't even make
ourselves.
sense. Like, we're
Mhm.
such logical beings that everything has to have a purpose and a meaning, that we don't even apply that to ourselves sometimes. But when you don't understand your feelings and you can work backwards and give things definitions, it really helps to reframe your whole mindset on any situation.
Mhm.
Some other little cool tips and tricks I have for you, though, especially when you're out and about, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding method. I'm sure you've heard
Yes,
about.
I've heard about
It's
this.
like just 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch,
Mhm.
3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and something you can taste. And what it does is it takes you outside of your mind and into your body, and it helps you reset that mind, give it a break, and just, like, hard reset. Okay.
I have to intervene for my BPD baddies out there. That is one of the biggest things. If you feel like you're about to split and spiral, if you can just like get away and be by yourself and do exactly word for word what Chris just said, it if you're already past the splitting point, there's not much you can do. But if you feel yourself getting there, this can work. And I have used it from experience many times. It sounds so silly, but it actually works.
I know, but it is key to like
Mhm.
figuring out like this before we get too far into it. Because, you
Mhm.
know, as we've all
Well,
been
and it
there,
just
once we
kind of
get
gets
to
you
that
out of
level,
that mindset. It
but
just
like,
pulls you into the now.
exactly. But what I was speaking on, like you spoke on, is
Mhm.
that you catch it before you get to that point of no return. Because once you get to that point of no return, you know, the only option is to hopefully see yourself in the moment and take a stage left. Just get the hell out of Dodge. You know, like you've already reacted, just go cool off. But, you know, these are the tips and tricks that, you know, when you start to catch the anxiety, start to catch that rejection sensitivity, that we reframe the thoughts and then we don't make us the center of the equation, you know, and that grounding technique can help you reach that level of understanding instead of get you out of your head and into your body and then start thinking, okay, are these logical?
Yeah.
And another other good one is that I just threw in there. If you're like just working long hours, like like if you work from home or you're corporate, it's that every 60 to 90 minutes to avoid overstimulation,
Hmm.
that over frustration, get up and do a 2-minute movement
Oh, I
exercise
gotta do
and
that. Yeah.
stretch, walk around, just get that blood flowing, and that will help reset that dopamine and
Yes.
the serotonin all inside to help you continue on in your next like a block of time focus. I learned that in school,
I
and
do
that
this at my
really
son's
helps.
baseball games because I have a really hard time. Sometimes he'll do back to back to back, and it's like an entire day of baseball. And it is so hard for me to sit there and focus. And like it literally drives me to I want to cry. I want to like curl up and cry. Like I get so overstimulated, and I'm just sitting there like and no one's doing anything. And so that is such a help. Is I get up, I go to the bathroom, I
Hmm.
go sit in the stall for a couple minutes. I maybe take a couple puffs of my vape.
Right? Anything to
And
get that
life's good again.
frustration out.
Right. And life is great again. It's not great, but for that time period, it brings me back down to a bearable amount
Hmm.
of stimulation. I'm like, okay, I can do this. I can do this for an hour and then I'll do it
And that's what it's about. It's like
again.
we have those periods of frustration where the anxiety built up, and it's those thoughts that are quiet that just sneak up behind us, and we don't realize we're even thinking of them until we're feeling it,
Spooky.
and we're like, oh, shoot, like what am I doing? Like I just amped myself up. When you really can catch where that feeling came from, reverse engineer and be like, where'd this come from? Where'd this come from? How'd that get there? And you see the progression. You're like, oh wow, I was thinking this and I wasn't even paying attention to it. Now all of a sudden my body's viscerally reacting to it, and you're
Yeah.
wondering why you're just like so stressed out. And we're luckily have the vape or like these tips and techniques, but ultimately through this process we're going to teach you to like see it, avoid it, and just be like, I'm not paying that attention and I'm going to keep on the easy street, just keep flowing. I'm
Mhm.
not going to veer, you know, I'm
Yeah.
just going to accept things as they are, attack things that I can, you know, put attention to things that I can.
Mm.
And otherwise, you know, I have to let go of things I can't handle in the moment. You know, if it's,
Detachment is huge.
it
That's
is,
a
but
big
in the
thing.
right way, you
In the
know,
right way.
the act of letting go, you
Yes.
know, saying this don't no longer serves me. I need to let
Mhm.
it go, or there's nothing I can do about this in this moment. I need to let this go, at least for now, until I can deal with it, because it's only ruining what I'm doing now. And that leads back into the community and connection, you know, like mental health really stems on community and connection,
Yeah.
because as we all know, our mental health gets way worse when we're alone and we alienate ourselves and we start
Mhm.
spiraling in our
You
own
don't
like,
text people back.
no, and you literally go crazy because you have no one there to check you. And hopefully
Mhm.
everyone has those good friends like us that will check you.
Mhm.
And that's what I love about neurodivergence is we always keep it real. We'll tell you, like I may not tell you unless you ask. If you ask, I'll tell you exactly what you want. Like,
I remember you texted me, this was probably like a week or two ago, and I would have to pull up to read the exact text, but it was so funny. You had sent me a bunch of texts, and I was like in the mood, not mad at you. I was just like in the mood where I was just getting anxiety from my phone, and I was like, I can't text anyone back right now. But I always feel so bad when I'm like that. And all of a sudden, I read your text, and you're like, even if you don't text me back now, I'm still gonna send this anyways. And you like went like I have to pull
Uh,
up the message.
no, yeah, I mean,
And I was like, you know what? I respect that. And I'm going to text him back right now.
I know I will mass text because if I don't get it out, I'll
I
forget
love
about it, and I'd rather you. And I'm like, you respond at your leisure, like get to
it.
it when you get to it. But I'd rather you get to these. I'd rather you see these ideas or these thoughts
Mm-hmm.
than not, and me forget about it. Because that's
Mm-hmm.
another hack. It's like get it down on paper, get it out, or send it. Just like if it takes like less than 2 minutes and you have the idea, just do it. You
Oh, I
know,
think what you said, you were like, I'm gonna send these and I don't care like if it looks like I'm talking to myself. Or like you said something like that. You're like, I'm gonna send it anyways.
I
I don't care if
always
you're
look
not
like I'm
responding.
texting myself.
Yeah, you're like, I don't even care if you're not responding. I'm sending it anyways. And I was like, that's what I needed right now. I needed someone to be like, girl, it's time. It's time to check the phone. You're a big girl. Okay.
Exactly. And I really hope you guys share this podcast with other people that you think could use it, utilize this. We all know somebody that's on the autism spectrum, that's
Oh yeah,
neurodivergent,
everyone.
ADHD,
Everyone knows.
ADD. If you think they could help benefit from this, a lot of people do feel like they're alone. And luckily, it is a hot topic right now. So it's hopefully perking the ears up of those who do need it, and putting out content like this hopefully helps as well.
Yeah.
And we want you to reach out to them, and we want you to reach out to us.
Yeah.
We want to meet you, like reach out in our comments,
Yeah.
DM us, like let's be friends. We want to hear your story, your experiences. Eventually, we're going to have
We should
guests.
share them like on here, like
Exactly.
when people you should
And
message
we'd be
us
happy to
and we'll
share like
share
a
it.
guest star, like kind of thing, like a spotlight from
Yeah,
an online viewer.
I
Like
would
we'll
love that.
share your story, your perspective, your tips and tricks. Like we want to hear from you because we are all in this together. It's not like we've figured out everything, but we've figured out some things, and we can grow and figure. And I know you guys have figured out things as well. And let's just make this something great.
Yeah.
And we're
Take
great.
care of each other.
Exactly. We're grateful for you and you paying attention to us, and vice versa. We're going to feed into each other here, and that's what the world is about. It's about kindness, respecting everybody's flow, and just feeding into each other. And if they don't align with you, you just move along, You
Mhm.
don't,
Yeah.
if it strikes something in you, maybe you need to be curious about yourself.
And ask why did it trigger me? That's like I have so many different triggers, and I've learned over the older I get is that if you can pinpoint your triggers and why, you can avoid so much conflict. Oh my gosh, I wish I would have learned that so much sooner in my life.
I know. It's like that's why we're doing this too. It's like we want you to hear all the things that took us till our 30s to figure out.
Mm,
Then luckily, like you can figure out before it gets too late and you meet the tragedies that we have throughout our lives,
yeah.
which we will get to, especially during that relationship episode.
Spooky.
But yeah, share this episode. We hope you follow us, subscribe, share with everybody, Unmasked Unchained.
Yeah, yeah, let's tell them what our Instagrams are.
Yeah, so we got
We need
Unmasked.
followers.
We've got at unmasked.unchained on Instagram.
Hmm.
I've got Chris_unmasked at Instagram as well for myself.
Yeah.
We've got Unmasked Podcast on YouTube. That's the Unmasked Unchained podcast you're watching this on.
Kaylee Unmasked on Instagram.
Yeah, you got Kaylee Unmasked here. And so you can find us on everything. And we're on TikTok as well. I think that's also Chris Unmasked. So we're all over the board.
Yeah.
So you can find us and share us and follow us anywhere you like.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
I like that.
Well,
I feel like we're just like having a conversation, and I like that.
exactly.
Like people can just like set up their phone and just like listen. Because I like podcasts like that where I can just set up my phone and just like do my laundry or something and just like almost like I'm like in the conversation with them.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like.
This one went really well.